I mean, it's connecting, but it's like I don't know. I watched the stream back, and it seemed fine. I think. Yeah, I don't know. We'll just go with it. It's fine.
All right, so what are we doing? Are we on or?
Yeah. We're on now. Sorry, I had to restart it because like it was showing that the connection was not like solid, but then when I watched like the stream back, the one that we just had, it seemed fine. So I'm hoping maybe it just clears out. I do know it's like starting to like storm here, so I don't know if that's affecting my connection on the end, but it should be fine. It's if it works, it works. If it doesn't, but nonetheless, I guess we're just talking about the clues where we might suggest if he is going to take less or take more. I guess you're saying that because the trend of like the last 6 or so quarterbacks is just whether we feel that they're worth it or not, because the market is dictating them that the next one gets paid the highest. It's just happening, and it's just like, why not Joe Burrow? But I just feel like if you just look at the clues within our team, it just seems like everyone's taking less. And I feel like if T takes less, T Higgins take less, then it's like, to me, that would be a pretty good indicator that probably Joe Burrow is going to take less to a certain extent. Because Tom Brady did it. So, like, I don't think it'd be crazy to think that he would do it.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm looking at the salary cap. So let's see. In 2017, the salary cap was 167 million. So let's look at 2018 because that's like a 5-year deal. So in 2018 it was 177 million, right? And this year it's 224 million. So what is that, like 40, 50, like a little under $50 million in 5 years. So and it's all because of revenue, right?
Yeah.
And I just think the way the media is going, right? The only thing worth money, or there's an outsized value for advertising for live sports, right? And NFL is like at the king of the hill for live sports. So I just think that the trend is going to continue, and I could even see it accelerating. So to me, it's just like you can have a good team as long as the people you sign perform up to their contract, right? And then you've got to have some players on your team that outperform their contract, and usually those are rookies, right? That's what we've said before. Every once in a while, you get lucky in free agency. Bengals have done great in free agency the past few years, right? Where they've signed lots of guys who have outperformed contracts, which is pretty rare when you think of it for free agent signings, right? And then they've done well in the draft. So I mean, to me, Joe Burrow is that player. You want to pay him. So I don't see, like,
Yeah.
if I were the franchise, I wouldn't even broach the subject, I would
Yeah,
just be
but
like, we'll pay you.
I think everyone is in a agreement with that, but I think they're also like, because even Mike Brown talked about it a little bit. He basically said there's like, um, I guess he compared it to hogs and feeding hogs, and you just don't have enough corn. Like you only have one bag of corn, so it's like
Mhm.
it was a very interesting analogy. But I mean, he's right. I mean, if you want to give him the full bag, you can do that, and I think they're more than willing to do that. But I think they're suggesting to him is like, hey, if we're a little bit more tactical about this, we can keep more of these other players happy too. And I think he knows that. And I feel like with every new player that signs an extension, I think they're all like suggesting that they're willing to take a little bit less for
Mhm.
more people to stay. So
Yeah, I mean, those are facts. It
so
seems like people are taking a little bit less. Like all the recent signings seem to be a little low,
well
but
so several things.
how low do you think it should be, right? Like what did we say last time? That he would average like 57 or 62 million over the life of the contract. So
Yeah.
how much of a discount does he need to take?
Well,
You need to take 50.
well, I mean, you could do projections, and I think they have a pretty good idea of like how things are going to project out because you can't just afford to keep increasing everyone's pay, right? Like it doesn't work that way. So they know you eventually have to gonna have to cut people along the
Well,
way. So like,
but I mean, you also you also want to be young. I
yeah,
mean, being an old football team is not necessarily a good thing.
no, and I think that's kind of like the model that they're going for is that they're trying to keep young and fast on the back end on the defense, and
Yeah.
then they're willing to pay for like experience for like edge or like receivers probably and quarterback like the skill positions, which makes sense. But I don't know, but like I do remember that there was a conversation, and I think Jamar Chase and I think even Joe Burrow confirmed that they've had like discussions about like pay and like I think they've hinted towards like they'd be willing to take less to keep everyone, and then even T.J. Hughes-Manzada said that like he said something to the extent is like, or maybe it was Whitworth, but they basically said, what's the difference of the extra $5 million, right?
It was
Like you,
$5 million.
right, but if you're making like if you're a quarterback, right, and you're making
Yeah.
say 50 instead of 55 million, that's the point. What's the extra
Right.
5 million when that 5 million could keep your star receiver, right? I think that's the point. Like, wouldn't you rather take 5 million less and just give that 5 million portion to your receiver to keep him? I think that's the point he was trying to make, and I was like, that's a very interesting and very specific like example, and it almost seems like that's kind of what they're talking about behind the scenes because like it's a very sensitive
Yeah,
subject
I mean,
because
it's very quaint. To me, I mean, you're a professional athlete. Careers are short. People get hurt, and to me, you take the money when you can get it, and you take as much as they can give you. You know, um, and then if you're a franchise, you prioritize your stars. So, I mean, I I feel like you could build as good of a roster by keeping certain people, and then you just gotta replace people in advance with younger people. You know, I mean, you see that to me, they drafted this year. They drafted Tyler Boyd's replacement, and they drafted Joe Mixon's replacement this year, right in this draft, and then last, I mean, they drafted
they probably
Jesse
drafted
Bates.
Cheetos.
Yeah, they drafted Cheeto's replacement. They drafted Jesse Bates' replacement 2 years ago, right? That's how you build a team, and uh, that's how you find the $5 million here and there to give to the guys that are elite and are stars. Um, you know, I mean, because in the end, you have to stay young. You have to constantly be turning a roster over, you know? Because I mean, an NFL career on average is short, right? Isn't it like 5 or 6 years?
It's probably
So
less than that,
right. So if you're a star player, your career is longer, right?
right? Yeah.
But everybody's not a star, and you have to identify your key players and your stars and pay them, and then the people that are not stars, you have to replace them with young players because you only have such a small window of time. And if you have a roster filled with average players who are, you know, 5, 6 years old, I don't think your team is as good as if you were 2, 3 years younger.
Yeah, because I mean, realistically, it's T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Burrow are like the next three that we kind of have to solidify, and I think we're pretty good for like the next 3 to 5 years. Like that, it's like
Yeah,
the new
and
window, and
that's
then
that. I mean, you can't really have a window much bigger than 3 years or so, right? You
no,
have to rebuild because just because the careers are so short, and like performance, the period where like people are good is very finite, you know.
well, and I like kind of like what we were talking about before about how deep the team feels because like even the receivers that we got today or not today this year's draft, like it seems like they're actually performing well in training camp, which is really nice to see that they might actually fill in, because like from like the receivers to like the corners and DBs, even to like the way we kind of like built our defensive line the last 2 or 3 years. Like I feel like we have a really good rotation.
Yeah, but I mean that's what I mean though. Like you can't pay to keep rotation players. You have to draft rotation players.
Well, I think they kind of have the model. I mean, there's times where like you do have to go out to free agency and you got to sign the right guys, and I feel like they.
Yeah, but that's what I mean though. The guys that you have, you don't want to re-sign though because they're not, you know, unless you can resign them super cheap. But generally speaking, right, you can't keep them around for their, 7th, 8th year in the league if they're just a rotation player. You need to go find the 3rd-year player and start the clock over where they were when they came to the Bengals, So all that to say is like, okay, if Joe Burrow takes less and Jamar Chase takes less and T. Higgins takes less, then who are they going to put the money? Like, who else on the roster do you need to keep? Or, I mean, really, to me, you need to be looking to replace and upgrade.
The reality of the situation is if you keep T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow, that's more than half of your salary right there.
Yeah. Well, but what I'm saying is you're saying if they take a discount, so that means they're freeing up $15 million a year, right? Or
yeah, but that's how you keep it like a DJ Reader and like some of those other like really good players that you may not be able to keep.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, I don't know if you should be keeping DJ Reader.
Well, maybe he's a bad example, but it's like how you can extend maybe a Hendrickson one more year or whatever that you're trying to do. You know what I mean? Like that makes a big difference.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, really, you have your edge rushers, right? So you got to draft good, right? So the most important player going forward is probably more so. Oh, geez, can't remember anybody's name. Who was our first round? Who was our first round pick?
Miles Murphy or
yeah, something Murphy. He's more important to the team going forward than Hendrickson, right?
Yeah,
because he's young. He has a chance to, be a key player for 5 years, whereas Hendrickson, you can't expect him to play at kind of the Pro Bowl level for 4 or 5 more years, right?
No, I think the writing's on the wall. Like it feels like they're always going to be ahead of the curve when it comes to their DBs and their edge because they've been drafting them like pretty much consistently.
Yeah, I mean, part of the magic of the team, the reason why they've been so good is, yeah, they got lucky, right? Because they were the worst team in the league when Burrow was available, and then the NFL gifted them T. Higgins in the second round, and then they were able to follow that up by getting Jamar Chase the next year. But aside from the fact that they got really good elite talent, I think there's something to the fact that they're young, having a young nucleus of players, right?
Yeah,
and I don't think you can keep around too many older players and be successful. Like, I think you need to have youth on the team, and if you're keeping your stars and then you got your offensive linemen and stuff, that means that you need to start adding young players everywhere else. So to me, it's just like you pay the guys that earned it. Just pay them.
Yeah, I mean,
everybody else you replace because you have to. Because you win games in the playoffs because nobody can cover Jamar Chase, right? You don't win games in the playoffs because you have more rotational players than the other team, right? You need guys who beat double coverage.
No, I agree 100% because like every time Jamar Chase breaks off a 7-yard touchdown, I just think in my head like, I wonder if Penei Sewell scored a touchdown. for 80 yards. Like,
Yeah,
I think about that all the time because it's like that was basically the debate. Like,
yeah. So I mean, I guess that's my point of it. It's just like I think it's quaint. I think it's interesting. I mean, if they take less money, I don't necessarily think that it makes the team better if Burrow and Higgins and Chase sign discount deals, because I almost think you're better off drafting and churning that roster and getting young players because, you know, you get, I mean, in my head, younger players are more athletic.
yeah,
and
but
older players are more, you know, are more savvy and, you know, are able to, you know, crafty, I guess. I think of like the pitching, right? Like the old crafty left-hander, right? They get by on knowledge. They make up for their lost, you know, speed on the fastball with like knowledge, right? You make up for your lost step and speed with, you know, skill and knowledge. But I just think you need to keep churning it.
yeah, I mean, that's I think it's part of it, but I think keeping the players that you drafted is also important. Like, you just don't want to let them go just because like you feel like they're getting old. But I don't know. I like it makes sense for them to take a little bit less if it knows that they can keep more of their core players. Because like if you pay everyone at a premium, then you're gonna have to let some really good players go. Or if everyone just takes a little bit less, you can kind of keep everyone, right? I think that's the way they're looking. Everyone that's worth keeping. I'm not saying you just
Right.
keep people just to keep them, but
Yeah, I just don't know how that works, right?
well, I think so. Like the trade off, if you think about this offseason, like what did we really lose? Jesse Bates and our
Yeah.
other safety, Bell, which
Safety,
was
yeah,
significant loss.
We got worse at the safety position, and
I don't
then
know. I think it's
well, but that I guess that's a test, right? So
yeah,
that's exactly what I'm saying, right? Is I'm saying uh, the veteran players cost more and are better because of their knowledge, right? And their ability to make up for lack of speed, specifically with the safety position, with scheme and knowledge and just being not being fooled, right? Not being tricked, right? And now you're replacing them with just like speed, right?
right. But I guess on the flip side, I guess the point I'm trying to make is
Young
that
and
we
youth and athleticism.
we essentially exchanged Jesse Bates for um, Orlando Brown Jr. That's basically the trade off. So it's like, but for us, getting someone that can play above average left tackle, hopefully at a Pro Bowl level, which I think he can, would be way more valuable than a safety playing at a Pro Bowl level
Yeah,
for a
but
safety.
that's different. I think it's different than what I heard you say, right? I thought you were saying you take less to keep other people on the team together. But if you're
Right.
saying you take less so you can go out and sign
Yeah,
like
but
another Pro Bowl player, that's a little bit different.
no. But here's the deal though, like Orlando Brown, like I was thinking like he was gonna get at least bare minimum like 20, 21 million a year, like whatever that they paid the left tackle in the Chiefs. Because they was it Lawan Taylor? Or no, sorry.
Taylor the one.
Is it Taylor Lawan?
Yeah.
Michael.
Whoever they got from the Jaguars, because I feel like Taylor Lewan's the dude from the Titans, but I could be wrong. Or that's Tyler.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right that you're wrong.
Right. Okay. Well, the guy from the Jaguars. Anyways, in my mind, Orlando Brown was worth more than him, right? So like the fact that that guy from the Jaguars, and actually I think he's still playing right tackle, which is crazy. He's getting paid 21 million or 22 million to pay right tackle. But then Orlando Brown Jr. is only making 16 million to pay left tackle. Like that just seems like he took a discount. I'm kind of talking about two different things, but at the same time, it's like I do agree that like I'm just saying we ended up spending that $16 million anyways. And I guess we could have retained Jesse Bates, and maybe that was actually on the table more than what we realized. But the fact that, oh no, because he signed quickly, so the Orlando Brown thing was kind of like after the fact. But still, it was like
Jawan Taylor.
Jawan Taylor. Okay,
No, not Jawan Taylor.
I feel like that's right, actually.
You think?
Yeah.
Because it says here Jawan Taylor's cap number is $5 million this year.
Well, it could be his cap hit, but his average salary is like 21 or 22 million a year. The one I'm thinking, it's the right tackle for the Chiefs.
Yeah, you're right. Next year he's making 20 million. His cap hit's 25. Maybe that's what it was. Right? Because Jawan Taylor is only getting 5 million this year. So maybe they needed a guy to take 5 million this year to make room for everybody else, right?
Yeah, but what is he making on average, like salary?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I thought you were looking at it.
Year. Well, I'm on Over the Cap, which is different than Spotrac.
I gotcha.
Which I like how Spotrac does it better than Over the Cap. Kansas City Chiefs.
I don't know. It seems like a silly excuse not to keep a better player. You know what I mean? Because like they could have manipulated the cap however they needed to.
Okay, so 4-year, $80 million contract. So it's 80 million average, or I'm sorry, 20 million a year average. But his cap hit this year is 5 million. Whereas
that doesn't matter though. You can make the cap hit however you want to make it based off the signing bonus.
Well, if the player agrees to it.
Right, but why wouldn't
what?
I guess what I'm saying is like why wouldn't he take the bigger contract then?
Let's see. So Orlando Brown's a 4-year, 64 million. $31 million signing bonus.
I know that was the big reason why he came here too. Was that
and average annual salary of 16 million.
Yeah.
So he wanted $31 million right now. I don't know. Time value of money. I think Orlando Brown knows how to invest his money, and he's going to come out ahead.
Well, yes and no. I think the speculation was because I want to say the Chiefs actually offered him like 24 something million a year, and then he turned that down, thinking he could get more. And I think them signing the guy from the Jaguars was for them to avoid, like, I guess, overspending on Orlando Brown Jr. But I ultimately think he did take a bit less to be here. Plus, he wanted to be a left tackle. I think that was a big thing, too. I think the only other team that was probably on the market would have been the Bears. And I think the thing...
So, I mean, did he really take a discount? Who knows? But
I think so.
We went down this rabbit hole. I don't even know why we did it. Why did we talk about this again?
Well, because I was talking about the offseason, and it's like, what did we really lose? And in my head was that...
Oh, gotcha.
For value, like, we basically took the money that we could have spent on our safeties, but we put it on the line, and I feel like the value to get an above-average left tackle would mean so much more than an above-average safety for the same amount of money. And, like, it's like...
Yeah.
So, like...
Because your best player is a quarterback.
Right. Exactly.
So you need to get things that protect your investment. Build your team to protect your investment. I don't know. This will be a good test to see what happens with the Bengals defense this year. If they are as good or better, then it kind of proves what I'm suggesting, right? That you need to stay young.
I agree, and I think the big determining factor is that the guy that we drafted in the 3rd round. Now I'm drawing a blank. The safety, Battle. Is it Battle?
No, mine's Clarence.
I think it's Battle, yeah.
I think it is Battle. But if he is basically Von Bell 2.0, then that to me would be like the steal of the draft for us. And it would just be like, because like the way I understood it was that he's basically like
Jordan Battle.
Yep.
Safety, Alabama.
Yeah. But I think I shouldn't, because there's aspects where he could do some of the things that Bell did. I think there are definitely, because I actually think he's more of like an instinctive player where he might actually be a little bit better in coverage. Like he isn't as fast as some of the other safeties, but he's just a really smart player, and he's always going to be in the right spot. And if you like,
yeah, but I mean, to me, that's cap management. Instead of giving a guy,
but also what you want in the
year,
safety, like safeties,
you
is you just want them to be in the right spot.
You draft a guy in the 3rd round. That's how you build a team.
Well, yeah, and then if he becomes a starter year 1, and that's like extreme value, because like,
yes and no. I just think that to be a good NFL team, your first 3 or 4 picks have to play. You know?
Well, no, we're in a position where he doesn't have to play because we
1.
signed another safety that's, you would consider like an average safety in NFL terms, right? So if he's
but to have a good draft, you got to get guys that are contributing right away.
Right, yeah.
Whether or not it's and by right away, I mean within the first season, right? Like you want him to earn the job. You want players that you draft to compete and win the job. You don't want to be in a position where and this is what the Bengals did in the 90s, right? The Bengals in the 90s would have either signed the guy in free agency or drafted the guy. They wouldn't have done both, right? And they would have been either hoping the free agent signing worked out or hoping that the person they drafted in the 3rd round could start right away. And this way, you bring in basically 2 viable options and you have the best player play. And the competition will yield the best player. And if someone gets hurt, you have depth. But
I think it's just
build good teams. Is you have to get production out of your draft picks.
Well, but also I think I didn't think they expected him to be there in the 3rd round anyways. But I think they knew at some point they were going to draft a safety, and it was just just kind of fell in place. But it's like they positioned themselves too to where like they got a guy in free agency that didn't really cost him too much, but also like it gives them a nice floor and say that like, hey, we at least have this quality of a player at this position, and and I think they found something that can actually be better than that. So like,
yeah, but that's roster building, right? I mean, you look at, let's see, I think I can I filter? Can I filter? Oh, I can manage roster.
Well, I think what the Bengals do a really good job of, outside of just like following their board and trusting their board, is that they tend to pick the right character guys that fits within like the team, and it feels like a lot of players, they kind of like build off of each other, and they all hold each other accountable.
So they have Nick Scott.
Nick Scott, the guy from the Rams.
Yeah, so they're paying him $2.4 million basically this year. And he's a 4th-year player. And they signed him to a 3-year deal. But basically it's a 1-year deal. Because if they cut him after this year, it's $2 million